In 10 minutes, I can't cover everything. I had 15 minutes of work planned. I'll do it in 10. A couple slides I want to talk about winter injury. Some things you may not need now, but there's one thing in particular that still is kind of lingering that gives me some pause, some concerns. I want to run through a few mechanisms of winter injury. I'm going to give you the spoiler alert first and tell you that winter injury is such a complex problem. There is not one thing I can tell you today that is going to prevent winter injury. But knowing that, let's get a look at a couple things here. So crown hydration. I'm going to read all of this for you. You can read through it. But it's as it says, ice formation in the crowns. It freezes, damages membranes, grass dies. Okay, we see a lot of that. Poa annua is most susceptible to that, and then just that's what the plants will appear like at the bottom. I think we're out of the woods for this, unless you live. If I live in Massachusetts, further north, we still could be in the woods for this a little bit. But around here, I looked at your forecast for the next 10 days or so, and I think we're good here. But a direct temperature, low temperature winter kill is always a possibility in our winters. Again, mostly to POA, but something to keep an eye on. This is where you get into the conversation of should we cover greens? I'll talk about some what I call myth busters, although I don't know that I bust any of the myths in there, but covering greens is one of the most common things to get around this. But it's important to know that our covers in this area generally are permeable covers, and once water gets through there and they start to freeze to the ground, it doesn't really matter. They do a good job buffering the temperature right at the surface, right around 35 degrees or so. They do serve a purpose until they don't, and that's winter dependent. That's not an every year thing, but it could change. Ice encasement, I do think we're out of the woods on this, but really bad would happen, and golf probably wouldn't be our concern at that point anyway if we get this massive ice encasement at this point in the year. But again, something that is a big concern for golf courses throughout New England, the Northeast, is ice encasement. As you can see in the bottom, POA is typically 30 to 60 days, typically. I mean, I've seen 12 days and I've seen longer. You get lucky with longer than that. But that's a typical range. And then creeping bent is 90 days or over. In my area, I work up into Canada. In Canada, they can kill some creeping bentgrass with ice encasement. We don't generally see it in this area. We just don't stay ice covered for 90 days or longer. But I should knock on wood. I don't know if this is wood or not. But this is something that still could be a possibility, but desiccation. It's this dry winter wind that you see. Occurs when plants, they lose water fast when they can replace it. We've had enough snow this year and some rain recently where we do have good soil moisture, assuming your ground was thawed enough to take some of this in. So maybe not a problem, but this is where you see like that midwinter, the golf course is snow free, but you get wind. Windy sites, we see a lot of this on Long Island, Cape Cod, these kind of just completely exposed to the element. You'll see a lot of this desiccation. South-facing slopes, bunker banks is where you'll typically see that. So, what should we do? This is that kind of Mythbusters section. Should we remove snow? This is one that, in a room full of superintendents, I'll get 50% one way or the other. And again, I can't tell you, yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't. Some people have done it forever, either remove snow or not, and have had some success, at least in what they think in their career, and that's what they've bought into. A lot of this is anecdotal evidence, which doesn't make it great evidence. This isn't, a replacement for true data. It's anecdotal. You can come and go with this on how you feel about it. If we're, Chris had that slide of the member squeegeeing. If you see a warm spell coming and you think you can remove snow or ice and eliminate some of that puddling, pulling of water, maybe get that off, that's probably helpful. In a winter like we had this year where we had some really cold temperatures, but we had a lot of snow, I think that snow is going to help a lot of golf courses. It formed this nice blanket of protection. The ground was mostly frozen before that snow came. The snow stayed almost throughout the entire winter, and that was helpful. This would be a winter that if you were to call me and say, hey, Elliott, should I go remove snow? I would have said no, because of what led into this winter. Next winter, you can ask me the exact same question, and I can give you the opposite answer of this year. That's how winter injury works. There is no definitive this. If you do this, you're either going to prevent it, or if you don't do this, you're going to have it. Another one I hear a lot in this area is, should we cover greens? You know, courses will cover greens, they'll move to temporary greens, maybe they won't cover greens, they'll go to temporary greens. If you cover greens and you've done that forever, go ahead. There's no real problem or risk associated with that. If you haven't covered greens and you're investigating it, that's where it's, you can get into the cost-benefit analysis. What I want to say, my point there is, if you've had winter injury in the past, some of you who've been in the business long enough, you probably had some really bad winter injury. Going and covering your greens doesn't completely eliminate that risk. It can help mitigate some risk. It can make you feel better. Maybe you sleep a little bit better at night through some of this bad weather we're having. But to go in and either sell or have a golfer ask you, if we cover greens, we'll never have winter injury again, that isn't the case. Just know that. Does internal drainage work? Sometimes. If you don't have drainage, we're in this room, often a collection of 100-year-old greens, push-up greens, weren't built with drainage. If you don't have drainage, I would put drainage in as a summer, in-season fix. Drainage does work. Does it prevent winter injury? It can, until the ground freezes. And then water can't get there anyway. So again, to go into a boardroom or a green committee and say, we need to have drainage to help prevent winter injury, that only works until midwinter when the ground is frozen. Then it doesn't matter. How much drainage you have on the ground does not matter in that moment. That could be where your 30 to 60-day clock is ticking, but water can't get to it. So now you're focused on better. I would do bird bath remediation, some of that to get water off the surface, then worry about it getting through the ground, because that doesn't matter at that point. Do temporary smile drains. So I didn't know exactly how to word this, but some folks have done this where they cut out a piece of ground in front of the greens, expose that, so at least when water does melt under snow or ice, it can get to this artificial drain and get off the surface. Once the season comes, those drains are filled back in, covered again with grass, and not a true drainage. But it's not buried so deeply that water can't get to it. You're creating this pathway for water. These work. Again, are they going to prevent winter injury in every case? They're not. But are they going to give water that's melting a place to go and get away that doesn't collect and have all the members out there squeegeeing? It could. Yeah, it'd be worthwhile if you've had chronic winter injury issues in these areas. And the last one is what I get a lot in this area, in New England where I am, in the Northeast in this area, is should we switch to bent grass? And I hate this question when it comes up. And I wrote a major article on it last year. I hate this question for a couple of reasons. If you are completely motivated as a club, as a golf course, to never have winter injury again, or at least 9 years out of 10, bent grass is the way to do it. That is an answer that you can never get around. Bent grass is the way to do it. Is it right in this area? That's where it gets tricky. Most golf courses are POA in this area, and POA is a great grass in this area, and I truly believe that in New York and North, you're going to have more better POA days than you are bent grass days. So there's always going to be this inherent risk of we want POA greens, and we know, or at least we think, they're a superior putting surface, but we know the challenges that come with that. Winter injury being a huge one. Summer concerns are always there. It's something you need to be aware of, but winter injury is what really concerns us. So I don't have a great answer. I tend to lean towards POA in this area. This is a POA-dominated area. It doesn't mean bent grass can't grow. Courses have it, and they manage it very well. But you need to ask yourself, why are we switching? And if it is, we never want to have winter injury again, then it's an easy answer. But I get golfers who say, we don't want to lose our POA because we like the look, we like the putting quality, that's what we want, but we don't want winter injury. Now you need to investigate some other things. With some of these drainage, with covers, how are you managing it? A lot of it's shade. We've heard a lot of things. Trees are very emotional, but shade is a major problem in summer and winter. It doesn't get discussed as much in the winter as it should because golfers generally aren't around when we're in midwinter. They're somewhere else. We talk about it in the summer, but there are greens that have no shade concerns in summer, but it's more of a winter problem. So communication piece. So with that, my lightning is over. We got a couple announcements before that. I think we're probably mostly out of the woods with winter injury, but I do get concerned. I was looking at the forecast at my house in Massachusetts versus here. Next week we still have some 29-degree low temperatures. So I mean, it's still a risk. Know that it's out there. This time of year is when I get most concerned for winter injury, because as Poe is waking up, Poe is absorbing water. It doesn't take much. One quick freeze overnight, and we can have some issues. So we're not out of the woods, but I want you to know that there are some things that can be done, and I'm telling you a lot of times there are things that just can't be done. It is not a, if my superintendent would have done this, or he or she didn't do this. It's not as simple as that. Sometimes it's purely, you got lucky or you didn't. And I wish you all the best of luck this year. So anyway, with that, I'm done.